Привет. What's up? This is Coach Kaz of Soviet Pendulum Boxing. Hope you're all doing well out there. I'm sure you all tuned in to the McGregor-Holloway 2 rematch and the disappointment of that fight. Today we're going to talk about the McGregor situation, a trained professional's opinion who is a sports scientist. I'll show you that video. I think this is probably what the most logical case of what actually happened. There's a lot of speculations out there, always floating on the internet, but I really think it's more simplistic than that. Before we get into that, please click subscribe. It really helps our channel out. My fighter is currently soon going into the amateurs. I've been training him in Soviet style. I'm one of the few Soviet coaches in America, and I'm happy to bring this channel to you. Training information, and tune in to watch the journey of my fighter Jack. Before we get into what actually happened with the McGregor-Holloway rematch, I want to get into a little bit of McGregor's career, and I don't really see many people touching on this, and I think it's a very important part of his career, of the technicalities of his style. And then I want to show you the video from the sports scientist professional, very good breakdown on his behalf. And I think that's probably the most logical solution of, unfortunately, what happened. First and foremost, I remember first hearing about Conor McGregor, first seeing him come up into UFC. And I told my friends, look out for this guy, he's gonna be big. He's not only gonna be big, but he's an interesting fighter technically. He's gonna do good things technically and beat people. And he was the first double champ in the sport. He changed the sport permanently in terms of marketing draw. As big as GSP and John Jones and Anderson Silva were, of how good their careers are, they could nowhere near draw anywhere close to Conor McGregor's level. And I know Dana White has been trying to find a fighter to market like that again, and it's not going to come for a very long time, or probably ever again. He was an anomaly, a one-off, and both boxing and MMA have been trying to find a McGregor type since. I was telling my buddy about this. Shout out Blake. What's up, man? He's a great fighter himself, trained himself. He's a student of the game, loves UFC and boxing. He's got some good hands, some good Polish hands. And a lot of people in the modern era of social media think that McGregor, this whole persona, was really just came out of nowhere. He kind of invented it. This theoretically actually came from Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather Jr. used to be called Pretty Boy Floyd when he was younger. And he boxed and did really well in his earlier career, but he found out that he was getting used by the system, the boxing promoter system. You know, incredulous people like Don King, who were taking care of fighters like Mike Tyson. Mayweather found out that he was just getting used by the system, so he cut the middleman out. He cut the promoter out and became his own self-promoter. I believe he was with Golden Boy even, with Oscar, I'm not sure. Or broke ties with them or his former promoter and became a self-promoter, and was so good at self-promoting that it created a post-Muhammad Ali persona. And this is the new blueprint of what I call shock entertainment of the modern social media era. Only people, the mass media, the mass consumers of media only click on things that's shocking. Oh, did you see what they said, what she said, what they did, what happened on the news? This was kind of created and partial by Floyd Mayweather, and it was a genius concept, and it worked. He created the villain type character. There's an interview, if you want to go watch, with Larry Merchant after he beat Ortiz, and him and Larry Merchant, who was an HBO commentator, were literally going verbal fisticuffs at each other on live TV after the show. And Floyd was already kind of like the bad boy before that, but it was kind of solidified, and he was that persona, and he promoted himself as that, the talker, the guy that you loved to hate, hoping that he would lose. That type of persona. McGregor kind of became the 2.0 of that, but even broader and even bigger, to a modern social media mainstream of the digital age. So that kind of persona was created by Floyd. And McGregor did it even better. He did it when UFC became, so he had a bigger platform. It was easier for him to market himself. So he kind of had that easier route over Mayweather. Mayweather had to literally reinvent himself. So I give him a lot of credit for that blueprint. It worked. Unfortunately, he also kind of ruined our society and culture in that. Now everybody wants to box like Mayweather or be like Mayweather. They want to make the money. They want to take the easy fights. And now people only click and tune into controversial things. Hence, McGregor versus Holloway rematch. McGregor's career-wise was exciting, and actually I really liked him as a fighter. When he first became a double champ, everything he did up to then was picture perfect. He became what I did not like about McGregor's career was he changed his style, and I saw this a long time ago, and I knew there was going to be problems. He then, somewhat became slightly overrated after losing to Poirier. But I wanted to transition before the losses and the leg injuries and, the losses to Diaz. He was kind of a one-dimensional fighter, mostly built on karate and boxing. He had some decent jiu-jitsu, but then when the competition stepped up to UFC, he had to take on people like Nate Diaz, who McGregor wasn't really naturally at Nate Diaz's weight. He had to go up, so he was fighting a bigger guy who had great jiu-jitsu and an insane gas tank. So he kind of bit off more than he could chew, thinking he was untouchable. He really should have worked more on his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu before taking on that. I think he could still have beaten guys like that, but you started to see him as a one-dimensional fighter come out. What I really did like about McGregor, and I think what made his career so flourish so easily, was his karate style. Our style, we train Soviet form, comes from the bladed stance of karate, where it's only showing your shoulder to your opponent, and that's how McGregor would stand as a southpaw. He would stand like this, and he'd use his hand as a probe. So instead of the natural Soviet form of the fist like this in the opponent's face, he would use it as a hand probe to distract them and come with the straight counter left, and it worked flawlessly. Once he changed that style, it was done. He tried to go into a more Western flat-footed style, and it just didn't work for him, and he got exposed. So that is my thoughts on McGregor's career. I really, really wanted to see that fight. I think if he came out in karate stance, he probably would have beaten Holloway. I know that sounds crazy from a 5-year layoff, but that guy at 170 has a lot of pop in his hands. And so does Holloway. And Holloway has beaten, knocked out Gaethje. He's got some power. It could have gone either way, honestly. But if McGregor didn't get him out of there by 2 rounds, you know who's going to win the fight. That's Max Holloway's domain. He gets stronger, punches harder as the fight even goes on, because other guys gets tired and Max still has gas in the tank. Which leads to the sports scientist video breakdown. Now, essentially, a lot of people are speculating, did McGregor have a prior injury? No, he came out with a statement. He did not have a prior injury. He was doing the actual same flying kick in the locker room. They showed footage of it. So he was good to go. The only bizarre thing that happened was when he was coming out to the ring with this flag on, he was trying to take his shoes off with no hands, and he kind of hyperextended his knee a little bit. I don't know if that's the culprit of the entire situation, but in this video you'll see essentially he just had a bad game plan. That doing that kick off the bat, coming off an injury, was not a good idea. Even though he was landing it, because he was landing it on pads for somebody standing there. All Max Holloway had to do was step back a little bit, and McGregor hyperextended his knee and his circulation of his spine and the planting of his foot. So people are trained when they know we spar, we fight. We know that when you miss a shot, you can injure yourself, and it takes more energy out than actually hitting an object. That's exactly what happened to McGregor, and unfortunately, it injured new injuries for him and re-injured the old injury, possibly. I'm not too sure on the titanium leg, but it caused more injuries for him. So I'm going to leave it to the sports scientist. I think his name is Quentin Torres. This guy is exceptional. You can watch this breakdown. The sports scientist of the ligaments, tendons, the gaits of how he's standing and landing, planting. It makes total sense. So I believe that this is what happened. Very sad. I am a McGregor fan. I wanted to see him come back. He electrified the sport. Dana is never going to find anybody like him ever again. And it's a sad day because it casts a dark cloud on our sports. People tuned into Jake Paul versus Tyson. They realized it was a money grab. Nobody's ever going to want to pay for anything like that ever again. Same thing happened they had their hopes up with McGregor Holloway too. It feels like it's a money grab. Even though I don't believe it was, I think it was just a freak accident. It feels like a money grab. People are going to stop tuning in. After somebody like McGregor is out of the sport, the UFC better think of something soon because they don't have any megastars. They're megastars to you and I because we watch combat sports. But the mainstream viewer who watches NFL or NBA, they don't really care about anybody except for McGregor. John Jones is retiring. There really is nobody to showcase. So I hope you enjoyed that breakdown. Tune in, subscribe, follow along to Soviet Bear Boxing. I'm Coach Kaz. Thanks for your time and enjoy the video.
Okay, so let's do a breakdown of the Conor McGregor injury that happened last night at the UFC. Now, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of posts going around on how this happened, why this happened, and I kind of want to clear up any of the meta, because I'm hearing people talking about how this is because of steroids, this is because of drug use. He's had such a long layoff that he's getting older. Like there's all these valid criticisms. Well, I guess that they're valid, but I think this is way simpler than people are realizing, right? So let me kind of break this down. Now, the first thing is that anyone that does this technique, you do it, I do it, John Jones do it. I believe anyone that actually tries this is going to explode their knee. Because this is just a terrible technique and a terrible idea. And I'll kind of explain why. So the first thing is that you want to notice when Conor goes in for this kick, all right, we'll kind of show the replay, is that he sprints and does this huge leap forward, right? Now the thing is, when you see him land on one foot like this, if you see a lot of basketball players that would go for a dunk and they kind of land on one foot in awkward positions, but that is vertical force, right? Vertical force going down, you probably can get away with landing at what this is called a weak angle, because you can't move from this angle. You have no way to change direction. So he lands at a weak angle, but the difference is that he's pushing horizontally. So he's basically doing like a broad jump, right? And all that force is going forward, not down, in a way, right? Because he's kind of catching himself, right? And all the force is trying to go forward towards, I can't remember his name, but towards his opponent. Now, the thing is, he's reacting to it. Now, you see Conor McGregor doing this technique in the locker room before the fight. The only difference is he's doing it against a stationary target, and Max Holloway, that's his name. He's doing it against a stationary target, and he's landing the technique, so a lot of that kinetic energy gets recoiled off of him and able to give him some stability to land. With this, he's doing it against a target that's reactive. Max sees the kick coming and steps away, slides away, right? So Conor has to really extend his body. And now his leg, his supporting leg, is way far away from his spine, right? And this is what we're going to kind of break down in a second. So he lands on his foot collapses. Now, this is not foot pronation, right? He does not have pronated feet. He has high arch feet. His feet naturally supinate, right? Anyone's foot is collapsing. just because of the trajectory of the force. There's nothing you can really do about it. Now, is Conor a little bit more externally rotated on average? Yes. And can that leave his biomechanics open for weaknesses? Yes, absolutely. But honestly, if anyone does this, I think your knee is getting destroyed because the joint cannot support force at this angle with your spine that far away from your first point of contact. All right, so let me explain what I'm talking about. So we'll go here. Let's edit this up. Right, okay, so we'll use red. So when Conor lands, right, so you see his foot's right here, and his tibias are here, and there's his femur, and all of the kinetic energy is going this way, right? So then when he hits the ground, it's too much force, and the kinetic energy is going to give at his weakest point. It's all going to accumulate right here. Now, the thing is why this really happened is not because his leg was in the position, because his leg was in this position while his upper body was so far off of alignment compared to his first point of contact, right? So his spine, so here's his neck, and his spine travels through here, and here's his pelvis, right? His head is way over here, and his pelvis is way over here, right? So that means that when he throws the kick, that this is taking all the kinetic energy. If you lift your body higher, your hips and all these other muscles in your core help distribute that kinetic energy a little bit better. But even still, you throw this, there's a reason they don't teach this technique in class. You don't do a broad jump, flying roundhouse kick. It's not something that you really train because that it just wouldn't work. It's super ineffective, obviously. And the second thing is that when you can land the kick, right, you can absorb that kinetic energy. But Conor is missing the kick. So that means when the kick swoops over, all that kinetic energy has to go with it, right? And guess what? If it doesn't make contact where he can throw that kinetic energy off him, that means he has to absorb that kinetic energy again. That's why when you throw strikes and you miss, it's so much more tiring, because not only are you pushing force, but you also got to catch all that force that you threw. You got to absorb all that eccentric phase and pull it back into you. And so all the kinetic energy keeps traveling, his leg keeps swinging, and then this just explodes. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is that this will happen to anyone. Anyone who tries this technique with maximum force and maximum intent is going to blow their leg up. All right, it's just physics. Now, whether Conor was doing plyometrics enough or he's doing too much weightlifting, all that, I don't think that's a factor in this scenario. I think this is just good old-fashioned, terrible technique, biomechanics that are biased towards a certain vulnerability that is just unfortunate, which didn't help. And, you know, he just did too much too quickly, and he just broke his shit. I think that's all it comes down to.